What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. This is the Week 8 college football betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, Colin Wilson. We are celebrating our 300th episode of Big Bets on Campus. So I want to take some time before we get started to thank all of you, all the listeners who make this show, from everyone sweating at home each Saturday and on weeknights. Weeknight action will be here soon, to the angry, sad, and elated voicemail callers. It's been a hell of a ride. Here's to 300 more. Best way to celebrate is going through this Week 8 card and betting plenty more trash, which I'll get to. But Colin, do you want to have any words?
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. 300 episodes. I had no clue that we were this far. We wouldn't be this far unless everybody downloaded, listened, left a review. Stuckey and I wouldn't be in this position unless you guys enjoyed the content that we bring. We wouldn't be here unless Matt Mitchell was doing an amazing job with our intro music, our sound drops, our segments. We just come to Matt with things like, hey, we need a drop that sounds like this. And he just comes up with it automatically. I don't know if he's using AI or what the hell he's doing, but he is such a big unseen person on this podcast that has been with us since day one. So a thanks from all three of us. And yeah, you're right. I can't wait till we get to episode 600, episode 1000. Maybe we can challenge Monday Night Raw for like longest running show in the history of entertainment. We'll find out.
Yeah, and some of you have been here with us even longer than that, going back to the Jen and Juice days, our original podcast. But it's been a hell of a ride, and let's have a huge rest of the season. RIP Bahamas Bowl won't be played in the Bahamas. I know our producer, Matt Mitchell, is going to be upset about that. Hopefully he's still with us after this week, because he is taking on a challenge. Someone challenged him to, he got in an argument saying, what is the equivalent of oysters to eating buffalo wings? Dozen buffalo wings. And you can put down a ton of oysters. So he said 48. So he's doing a challenge tomorrow where he's got to eat 48 oysters. But there's like you're not supposed to like eat oysters this fall. There's like a brain eating bacteria that has been found in oysters that can kill you. So hopefully he's still with us next week. All right, let's
come here.
Let's Google it. I saw it like a month ago. I eat like smoked oysters a lot, and I get it like Trader Joe's. But
so let me get this straight. We're gonna segue from a brain eating oyster into a Wisconsin football handicap. I mean, this couldn't be a better segue.
Yep. So before we get to the marquee games, which will feature obviously Penn State, Ohio State in a massive game, we do have two games in our look ahead or look away. All right, this is the section each week where we look at the schedule, last week, next week, and see if there's any situational spots where a team might get caught looking ahead, or they might, if they're a big favorite, they might pull their starters a little earlier. Could lead to a second half play. There could be some letdown potential. These are college kids after all. So we have two here. Let's start with Wisconsin at Illinois. Wisconsin has Ohio State on deck. They are, of course, coming off of a loss. The big news with Wisconsin is, they were still trying to figure out the offense, and now they lost their starting quarterback, Tanner Mordecai, and are turning to Mr. Locke, I believe he's a Mississippi State transfer, who got in the game last week against Iowa, and Braden Locke, he finished 15 of 30 for 122 yards with an interception. They also lost Malusi, their back, who was like, Braylon Allen's the more talented running back, but with the offense that they play, Braylon Allen struggles in pass protection. So like that's where you really you really see a drop off there with now Allen getting a majority of snaps in the backfield. But I will say, and Illinois here is coming off of a big win outright at Maryland. I am officially the Burt Whisperer, and I think Illinois is the side here. Definitely going to be in my round robin. I missed the number. People hit this on open and it came down past 3. Would like to get 3 with Illinois, but they got some offensive linemen back. I really like their young backs, especially Fagan. And I still think Illinois has some value. Illinois has some value over the past 2 weeks in the market. And this Wisconsin team, they have issues on defense. They now, the offense was still trying to find itself, and now you lose your starting quarterback. I think Illinois is the side here. I think Burt gets it done with a second straight cover after starting off the year. Offer against the spread. Any thoughts on your boy Burt?
Oh, wouldn't Bielema love to get the win here so him and Jen can run around and hashtag karma with everything in the Wisconsin program?
Yeah, this is personal too for Bielema.
Yeah, it is personal for Brett. So I think the number really confused me this week as I made this -7 with Tanner Mordecai in there. Is there really that big of a drop down to Braden Locke? Because Tanner Mordecai numbers have been pretty bad, and we don't really know a lot from Braden Locke. 16-31 interception, no big time throws. He's had 4 turnover worthy plays already, so maybe the quarterback play is about to get worse. He's a 3-star originally, signed with Mississippi State and hit the portal last January, like you mentioned. As bad as the Illinois defense has been in allowing quality drives, the Wisconsin offense has been worse, and it gets really hairy when you look at the strength of schedule. Wisconsin 107th strength of schedule, Illinois top 30. So when you hear all these Wisconsin numbers in some parts that are bad, like they don't have any explosive plays, they can't throw the ball, they don't have quality drives. That came against an extremely soft schedule of Buffalo, Washington State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Rutgers, Iowa. I mean, come on. You can't even get inside the top 100 in some of your offensive categories with a Phil Longo offense against those teams. But the big advantage here is running the ball. Wisconsin's top 10 offensively in stuff rate. Illinois defense is 106. So that's where Wisconsin's going to be able to get a little bit of traction. Now, whether they can score, maintain a methodical drive and score, it's another subject. But I do see value on the over. I see it continues to dip. I think that's Tanner Mordecai related. Just the nature of these two offenses, I can understand why it's dipping. At 40.5, 41, I'm definitely buying this on the over. Both teams are 24, 25 seconds per play. Illinois is going to have some success running the ball themselves. Now, as I'm talking, Reggie Love has yet to be cleared. They're waiting to clear him to run to play in this game and run. But if he doesn't, Caden Fegan has been pretty good. 2 of the last 3 games, he's had 80 yards rushing. He's filled in great. And like I said before, I don't trust Wisconsin's numbers at all. On the defensive side, I see a lot of green. But guess what? You want me to go through the teams again that they played? I mean, I'm not really fearing some of the offenses they've gone up against. So I like Illinois too. I think the number is way too short. I think Illinois can get some points up on the board. You're right. It is personal. There ain't going to be any knees taken. I like the over in this game, especially at 41.
Yeah, I think there is a big drop off here, just from an experience standpoint. And I know I was a tough defense, but I didn't really like what I saw from Locke. And like you're trying to build this new offense. You're basically now starting over again in a way. So as the resident Burt whisperer, I will have Illinois on the card in some fashion. All right, quick headphone change. We're watching on YouTube and see my headphones change. My other headphones died. Other game we have here, Pitt travels down to Wake Forest. Wake Forest off of I think this is a great spot for Wake. I do like Wake here. They are coming off just an embarrassing loss against Virginia Tech. Their head coach, Dave Foster, is one of the best motivating head coaches in college football, really laid into the team all week. It was a mess. Meanwhile, their Pitt is coming off of a huge upset win over ranked and undefeated Louisville. On deck, they have Notre Dame, and then I believe Florida State. So this is your classic sandwich spot for Pitt, which could come in here, a little flat against the Wake Forest team that I think you get their best effort, homecoming, trying to bounce back, generally play better at home. I will say the offense is a mess. I mean, teams have figured out that you just blitz Mitch Griffiths, and he got benched last week, but I believe his backup Kearns got hurt. So it'll be Griffiths getting the start again this week. And teams are just blitzing them, and their offensive line can't hold up and they can't move the ball. But I still think that Wake Forest is the side here, given the spot, because if you look at this Pitt team, yes, they went to the Penn State transfer in Veyer, and he was a little better than Jerkovich. Jerkovich wasn't great, but if you look at that game last week, I mean, he finished 12 of 26 for 200 yards, didn't make any mistakes. But Pitt was outgained 430 to 280. That game was all about the mistakes that Louisville made. So I'm not all the way back on this Pitt team that still has holes. I think this is one of the better situational spots on the board. I will have Wake Forest on my card. Any thoughts there?
I don't like Wake Forest. I actually have them favored by 2 here, but for no reason can I bet them. I was actually leaning and looking towards Pitt. And I know that the spot screams Wake Forest, but I've been betting against this Wake Forest team most of this season. And you know, Christian Veilleux coming in, I think Pitt fans are really excited to have him. Especially, I think, what do we got? Yarnell and second on the depth chart. And we got Phil Jurkovic, the tight end, now is third string on the depth chart that was released. But this Wake Forest team, I just can't get behind anything that they're doing. I mean, 49th in pass rush, 61st in havoc. They're not going to be able to get Christian Veilleux to, you know, make a lot of mistakes, which he had one turnover worthy play last week. I expect him to get better and better as the weeks go on. You know, tight end Gavin Bartholomew, he's been the most explosive. He had 3 targets against Louisville last week. Veilleux really needed to hit Mumfield. He had 8 targets, but only connected on 3 in the day. Maybe that gets better as time goes on. But what does Wake do best? And I can't find an answer on offense. I can't find anything. They're near dead last in the nation. Rush explosives, havoc allowed, quality drives, and this quarterback, Mitch Griffiths, so you took away from the starting position, you're going to throw him back in there with one of the worst havoc allowed ranks in the nation. The offensive numbers all come with a soft strength of schedule, 95th. They've been going up against defenses such as Elon, Vandy, and Old Dominion. And if you look at Mitch Griffiths' numbers, he has not recorded a big-time throw in his last 3 games against Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Virginia Tech. So if you're betting on Wake Forest, I get spot and I get fading Pitt, but Wake Forest doesn't have anything to take advantage of this. I mean, this is we're trying to go 3 for 3 in spots that involve Louisville, Pitt, Notre Dame. Like, I get it, and they're all paying off. But Wake Forest has nothing on this team that's redeemable.
Yeah, it's not a great situation. I mean, I think last week there was some residual effect of that Clemson loss, right? Second straight road game. They gave Clemson a fight. They lost by 5. And the Wake Forest defense has actually been better than I thought. I am a bit worried about their D giving out. Like, they're on the field so much because of the ineptitude of this offense. But I'm going to trust the spot here because I do make Wake Forest a small favorite as well. I think it's a good bounce back spot for them. And it's also just a terrible situational spot for Pitt. As a reminder, the BBOC podcast is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get to our marquee matchups of the week. All right, this is what, as Kirk Herbstreit said, this is what college football is all about. This isn't Thursday night football. We have Penn State at Ohio State, who will kick off things on Saturday. What is it called? Big kick on Fox. What is it? Big noon?
Big noon?
Big noon on Fox, which I hate because it's big 12:15 Eastern. It doesn't start at noon. This is all they change these clock rules to just get more commercial. And the game will start at 12:15. You'll be waiting, watching the clock, and then it'll be noon, and then there'll just be talking heads still going through the games. But whatever. I can't wait for this game. Ohio State, 4 to 5 point favorite, depending on the book. Shop around as always. Over under down to 45.5. The under has taken significant money ever since opening. Now, the question that I have here for this game is, if you look, both head coaches I've had issues with in the past, but I will give both credit for making outstanding defensive coordinator hires, which I think you're seeing paying dividends for both stop units, right? You saw Ohio State before last season go out and get Jim Knowles after just, the defensive coordinator position was an issue for Ohio State for years. I think you're seeing that pay off this season. Defense is significantly improved. And if you look at the underlying metrics, they've been great. Ohio State goes and gets Manny Diaz. Their defense has been great as well. We will see if Denzel Burke, a couple injury questions with Ohio State. Denzel Burke, their top corner, will he play? And then their offensive injuries. You had Luka didn't travel to Purdue last week. You also had a number of injuries in their backfield. Sounds like they have a better chance to go this week, but that's definitely worth monitoring. The biggest question that I have in this game is twofold. Look, I believe in the Ohio State defense, and I think they're solid. And just they passed the eye test. I'm not sold on the offense. Like, I'm just not sold on Kyle McCord. The running game isn't there. The offensive line has issues. Like, just go back to, they took advantage of some really slow-footed secondaries. And that, like, McCord has put up some good games, as he should. He has the most ridiculous set of wide receivers in college football, but it just looks off at times. And you saw that Notre Dame game. Like, Notre Dame's a drop pick from holding them to 200 yards passing and 10 points. Even against Indiana and Youngstown State, the offense it's not quite there yet with McCord. He still doesn't look comfortable in the pocket, and I assume he's going to be under fire here the entire game. The biggest question I have in this game, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, because I don't know if anyone knows the answer, is Penn State, who has covered, I think, 12 in a row, dating back to last year, or 11-0-1 against the spread. They've played West Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, and UMass. They played nobody. And they've played no offense with a pulse. So I'm like making a leap of faith on what I see on the defense. Like, the metrics are outstanding, and they're like so elite, and they're dominating so much that you have to, give those numbers weight, and they're important, but also just the eye test to me. Their defense is legit. I think they're going to win in the trenches when Ohio State is on offense. But I do have questions about their offense. And they haven't had to do much, and their efficiency numbers look good, but there's no explosiveness in this offense at all. I mean, it is, they're outside the top 100 in explosiveness, any metric you look at. Drew Aller hasn't thrown downfield at all. So the question is, and that was the question coming into the year. Okay, let's see what Aller's got. And I want to see this wide receiver room. What can someone step up and be the alpha? That was really the question with Penn State. And they haven't had to answer it, but they will against Ohio State and Michigan. So is it that Aller just hasn't had to and he can? Or was Penn State just holding back the offense? I don't know. That's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out if Penn State's a true national title contender with that offense, because they're going to have to open it up a little bit more this weekend. I like the under. I still like it at 45.5. I think that both defenses have significant edges. I think both quarterbacks are going to be under fire. And I think that both teams are going to go pretty run heavy and be pretty conservative early on, lean on their defenses. So I think this turns into a grinder, and it ends like, I'm going to say 23-20, 23-17. Could see either team winning. I have these teams pretty even on a neutral field right now. So I have Ohio State as about a field goal favorite. So I have a small lean to Penn State, but just that uncertainty with their offense is keeping me away from the side. Might look to jump in live, but I did play the under. I like the under. I can't wait to learn about this Penn State offense. And we'll see if Kyle McCord, what he can do against an elite defense. What are your thoughts on this game?
I echo everything you say. I just have two different bets. I mean, I did take Penn State on open at 5. It looks like we're having a tug of war battle on the key number of 5 in the market here, with the 4.5s and 5.5s bouncing around. So make sure you get on the right side of that, whichever. I didn't know 5 was so key, but there's obviously a big battle in the market. I agree with you on everything you said as far as going under the total. What gave me a little worry with that was what happened in the fourth quarter last year, where it was tight the entire game, and then all of a sudden haymakers got thrown in the fourth quarter. I think there was 35 or 45 points. I can't remember. It was a ton of points going on in the fourth quarter, which kind of ruined everybody's unders. So if you look, this game is always super tight in the first quarter. 10 points or less have been scored in the first quarter of this game every year since 2017. if you throw out the pandemic season of 2020. I know I've personally thrown out every pandemic game from 2020. So this series is generally really low scoring, scripted plays, feeling each other out. What coverage are they presenting? Am I putting guys in motion? Like, I mean, it's really just a feeler, because Ohio State loves to put their guys in motion. They love to get defenses moving around, getting a little, not sure where they're at, try to confuse them, and then hit them with, some sort of Marvin Harrison blaze downfield. But I don't think that's what's going to happen here, because Penn State's defense is the best defense in the nation. It's the best one that they're going to face, especially from a secondary perspective. Explosives continue to be an issue for Penn State. I'll start with the rush. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, they're below 3 yards after contact. So you go and ask the question, is that Allen and Singleton's fault? Is something wrong with them? Did they digress in the offseason, or is it the offensive line? Well, Penn State is number one in offensive stuff rate. And, that tells me that the offensive line is doing their job. 22nd in line yards, the offensive line is doing their job. There's just no second level yards here at all. And who knows?
There's no explosiveness in the running game or passing game. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the passing game is more easy to dissect, right? Because what's happening in the second level yards with Singleton and Allen, it's just them running the ball. It has nothing to do with the play calling, or maybe offensive lineman blocking downfield is not there. I don't know. But from a passing perspective, Drew Allers attempted 11 passes beyond 20 yards. He has a 15-0 TD to INT ratio, but he only has a 3-1 big time throw to turnover worthy play ratio, which means everything is safe. There has been zero risky throws for this quarterback. So that comes back and says, is Mike Yurcich holding him back? Does he not think that he can do it? Are we keeping things off of film? You don't even want to let one leak versus, this really soft schedule. So I went back to, and like Mike Yurcich is an offensive coordinator, and the stops that he's had, did you ever go to game 7 or game 8 before showing explosiveness? And the answer is no. So I don't know what is going on. Like, if we don't see Penn State attempt to pass past 20 yards in this game, I mean, there is something truly wrong. Maybe Drew Aller is coming off Tommy John. I don't know. I really don't understand why the lack of explosive attempts. It's not everyone's Penn State doesn't have explosives. No, they don't have any attempts. So
yeah, like it seems like a weird thing to try to turn on the road against a good defense in your biggest game of the season halfway through the year. Like, not even like let's try to get some rhythm on these things, and you don't have to show a lot, but let's. I know James Franklin mocked the reporter that asked, but let's just try to throw it downfield a couple times, and instead of trying to turn it on when you need it, because you eventually are going to.
There's a theory out there, and the fact that Jim Knowles lined up against Michigan last year and went heavy cover 0 and brought everybody, I just wonder, like, is Mike Yurcich trying to bait Ohio State into going cover 0 and rushing everybody? Like, are you trying to get that? What the scheme was against Michigan? Are you trying to pull that out of Ohio State again? So we'll see. I mean, I don't know how much of this is cat and mouse and what's going on, but on the other side of the ball, there's just too many guys that are important to Ohio State's offense that are considered hopeful. Every single running back, Mayan Williams, Trip Trainum, Trevion Henderson, looks like he's going to play, but he was deemed hopeful. Emeka Egbuka might not be there. That means Marvin Harrison is going to get double teamed, even though I don't think he needs to, because Johnny Dixon and Kalen King are two of the best cornerbacks in the nation. And then you go and you look at Kyle McCord's numbers when he has pressure, 15 of 42 passing with pressure this year. Manny Diaz brings blitz heavier than any defensive coordinator in the nation, 56% blitz, 67% success rate. He causes a negative EPA. I don't expect Kyle McCord to just flip a switch and have it on here. He has average success rate and EPA against cover 1 and quarters. Penn State plays, they live in cover 1. They cause a negative play on 20% of the time. So I agree with you. Like, the under, this is an under, this is a first half under. Either way you shave it, I think you and I are key there. Penn State will do enough to cover here. This game's going to be an offensive slog. We don't know who's going to be successful in taking shots downfield. So I'm going to stick with Penn State on the side, because I backed them to make the college football playoff. This is a game we have to have. I power rate at 3. I'm sticking with Penn State, but I have a lot more money on the first half under.
Yeah, they don't necessarily need it, but the tiebreakers probably won't break their way, because if they beat Michigan at home and then Michigan beats Ohio State, and it'll come down to tiebreakers in your West Division opponents. So yeah, I think they, at the end of the day, probably need to win this game. Hopefully they do for our futures. This game has massive Big Ten, college football playoff, national title implications. We'll learn a lot about each first-time starting quarterback For what it's worth, Ohio State has won 6 straight in this series. This will mark the first meeting where both are unbeaten, meeting in Columbus since 2018. I mentioned this briefly, but curious to get any of your thoughts. Denzel Burke, who struggled early, he has the potential to be a first-round cornerback. He struggled early adjusting the Knowles' system, but has now been playing very well. He got hurt last week. Freshman Jermaine Matthews stepped up as a replacement. Jordan Hancock got some more run on the outside. How big do you think Burke?
Huge. He's their best coverage defender by far at corner. He was able to play one-on-one coverage, whoever that's going to be against Penn State. He has more forced incompletions and more PBUs than anybody else in that secondary. Again, are we going cover 0 and coming at Drew Aller without Burke? I'm really that's a huge loss. That's another reason I'm not peeling off my Penn State +5. He is such a big piece of that defense that makes the field even more open for Aller when he's looking at targets. Because I figured he would avoid Burke with how good his number is, but if he's not there, open field.
Yeah, I mean, you're an Ohio State fan. This might be a big game for Julian Fleming. But Penn State's coverage has been excellent. I know the schedule, you have to take a leap of faith here because the schedule hasn't been great. But I like the talent. I like Manny Diaz. I still think, even though you have talent, no one's covering Marvin Harrison Jr. One-on-one. So I think you trust your other guys, and then you just roll help over. Notre Dame took him away. That's what they did. Indiana did the same thing. And in both of those games, Ohio State's offense was completely hampered. So I think Harrison's a generational talent. I think you have to help and not let him beat you on his own. Because even when McCord's been off, like, it doesn't even when Harrison's in single coverage or let to roam free against zone, or like, he's going to come down with the ball, even if it's not perfectly thrown, and he's going to make plays and potentially score multiple touchdowns. I think you cannot let him beat you.
I got a stat in this area. I love this stat. So on target is if you hit your receiver in stride. If he doesn't have to move, it hits him in the numbers, he can just keep running, you hit him perfectly. Ohio State's offense is 64th in on-target rate. Penn State's defense is the #1 defense in a nation in on-targets allowed. So that is definitely something to watch to see if Marvin Harrison has to extend himself to get a catch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we'll learn a lot about each team. That's just going to be the nature of how the Big Ten plays out this year, because there's no depth this year. It's like Michigan has played nobody all year, and guess what? They look dominant. We got to give them credit for that, and they're one of the teams in discussion. But we haven't really learned how good, because they haven't played anybody, and they won't play anybody until they play at Penn State.
Yep.
And we'll have this same discussion on Michigan, and what happens here will certainly impact that line, because I don't think the market ratings on Michigan are going to change much between now and then when they play Michigan State and Purdue, unless they somehow get upset. So yeah, a lot to learn in the Big Ten, even with Ohio State. Like, Ohio State at least has that data point against Notre Dame, but it wasn't a great data point. Like, they should have lost that game. They should have only scored 10 points. But other than that, they haven't really played anyone either. And they struggled at times versus Maryland. They've had some good games against Western Kentucky and Purdue, two teams that don't have secondaries. That's not the case with Penn State. So can't wait for this one. Noon Eastern, or I should say 12:15 Eastern on Fox. All right, let's move on to, and we are go Penn State. I know my dad will be happy that I'm rooting for Penn State. Diehard Penn State fan. All right, let's move on to our second marquee game. Let's head to the ACC. We'll talk a little Duke, Florida State, two teams that are at the top of the conference in the ACC standings. And Florida State is out to let me double check the market. The last I looked, they were 14.5 point favorite. Yeah, 14.5 point favorite. Over under has ticked down to 49.5. This game, just like Ohio State, Penn State, has massive ACC, college football playoff, and national title implications, even maybe some Heisman for Jordan Travis. But as of right now, UNC, Florida State, and Duke are undefeated in the ACC. The top two teams will play each other in the ACC championship. So if Duke loses this game, they're certainly not out of it, because they already beat Clemson, and they will go to North Carolina later in the season. So they will still have a chance. I don't know how much time we can spend on this game, because the big question is surrounding the health of Riley Leonard. It sounds like the news is getting more positive, but again, it's an ankle injury, high ankle sprain. And what makes Riley Leonard so great is his legs and his mobility and his ability to extend plays, his rushing ability. And there's just a big drop off to Henry Beelan, who completed 4 passes last week. That win was more about NC State last week than it was Duke. There's a big, whether there's a big drop off. There's I have it as, I think, between 7 and 7.5 points. Now, we don't have a lot of data on the backup, but that's what I'm estimating. So number one, we don't know if Leonard's going to go. And number two, if he does go, we don't know how effective he will be. And a hobbled Leonard with limited mobility is just not going to get it done here. What do you see in Duke, Florida State?
Well, that's the whole thing. Is he healthy enough to play? Actually, the question is he healthy enough in the lower body to play? Because they have to have his legs to go at this. And I think before I get into that, let's talk about the market, because you're going to want to know when and where to buy. And I think that is one of the hardest parts of our job, is to set down a power rating, assess the market, see where everybody is in the market. If you trust your power ratings, which I do 100% completely at this time of the year, then you have to assess what the market is telling you about the injury. I make this game Florida State minus 12.7. So at 14.5, what you're telling me is he's doubtful. He's doubtful to play this game. Questionable, doubtful. The books have already protected themselves in case it comes out that he isn't going to play, because then there's going to be mass steam, but it's already over 14. If it comes out,
that's not just I make it around 11-7.
Yeah.
With both teams are fully healthy. And that's not just a 2-point move. Like going from 10.5 to 12.5 is not nowhere near as significant as crossing through the 14.
Right.
And something else just to add to that is that sometimes when there's major injury uncertainty, when there's, a team steams out, especially just like all at once, and there's nothing determined, nothing public yet, sometimes there's just a rumor or confirmation from inside. Someone knows the trainer, someone knows an assistant coach. One text goes to someone, a text goes to someone else, it gets to a group, they start betting it.
Yep.
Coming from respected accounts, and then the market really moves. And so a lot of times I'll say, okay, wow, wait, this is, even though I show value, this is probably telling me that there's a high probability that Leonard or whatever injury is, this important guy is probably going to be out.
Yeah, I mean, pay attention to the board, because usually these kinds of things are determined by Friday night by 5 o'clock. Like, I've seen the board move on Friday nights, and it turns out, I think there was one year a Charlotte line moved. I was texting people like crazy trying to get inside what was going on. Turns out their entire offensive line had the flu, right? So it's you just need to pay attention. But what the odds makers have done here with this game is they protected themselves from the news that Riley Leonard isn't going to play. So you can expect to see it steam if he's not playing. I'm not even sure what the drop down to Henry Beelan is. We need a clean game out of him. He did have a 14.6 average depth of target, so he does have an arm, but the strength of this Duke offense is the rush explosives. And it's not all on Jordan Waters. Half of the explosives have come out of Riley Leonard. That's how important he is to the offense. It's not just the passing yards that you read in the stat boxes. These rushing yards and the rush explosives half belong to Riley Leonard. So they need his legs desperately here. I think
he also keeps drives alive, like third downs. You add so much EPA on that. And then you're also keeping the defense honest. It also opens up other things, routes underneath, keeps your linebackers in check, and it's just massive.
Yeah, he's like a Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, 3rd and 11. It's always a little run for a conversion that screws your bet over, right? Riley Leonard's that good. I think the Duke secondary is going to give Jordan Travis his toughest test. And I'm getting so much hate from Seminole fans out there for Brett's ranking every week. But let me go through this here. Exactly who has Jordan Travis gone up against from a pass defense perspective? LSU is 94th in coverage grading. Southern Miss has given up on the season. They're 126th in coverage. BC, 123rd. Clemson, 40th, but they had a ton of injuries when they played. Virginia Tech is 70th. So, explain to me who Jordan Travis has looked at to throw the ball where it's been like a really strict defense. Well, Duke actually is. Duke's actually really good at defending the ball. They're number 1 per PFF in coverage grading. Duke runs a ton of cover 1 and a ton of cover 3. Jordan Travis actually has a negative success rate and, vanilla explosives against cover 1. So you can expect Elko to be dialing up cover 1 to give Jordan Travis a problem. So I think all of that said, I'm staying away from the spread because of Riley Leonard. I like the under in this. If Riley Leonard's announced out while everybody's trying to chase his steam going up on the Seminoles, I'll be chasing an under.
Yeah, I like the under here too. I think that Duke defense is legit. And yeah, I mean, I think that Elko will have a good game plan here. And even if Leonard plays, I don't think he's going to be 100%. He's not going to be as mobile.
Yeah.
And that is just going to hamstring the offense. Maybe if he does play, this total ticks back up and you can get maybe a 51. So I'm going to wait, but I like the under as well because I think this Duke defense will come to play. And then I think Duke was going to have to try to shorten this game, right? And then just play super conservative and hope their defense can make some plays. So I agree with you there. All right, let's move on to our third marquee game. Let's head to prime time in the Pac-12. USC will host Utah. USC is looks like consensus now 7-point favorite. Over under sitting around 54. This game 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. This pains me to say, but I love USC here. Loved it a little more under a touchdown, but look, I think USC will bounce back here. Double revenge spot. They lost twice to Utah last year. They got embarrassed against Notre Dame. I think they will come out with their hair on fire here against the Utah defense that's been excellent if you look at their metrics. But come on, let's see. Who have they faced? At home, they faced Graham Mertz and a pair of freshman quarterbacks making their first starts in hostile environments. On the road, I mean, they went to Oregon State and got dominated. And they went to Baylor, a bad Baylor team, playing their backup, making his first collegiate start, and should have lost to Baylor. This team has played nothing but bad passing offenses and backup quarterbacks. So I'm not sure how real I know their defense is good, but I don't know how elite it is. And they will be without star safety Cole Bishop for a bullshit targeting call that he got in the fourth quarter. That's big. He's like the leader of that defense. So if USC comes out with their hair on fire here in a big hype spot, I expect Caleb Williams to bounce back at the disastrous game. I expect the USC defense to number one, let me get back to my thought. So they come out with their hair on fire, no Cole Bishop, and they jump out to a lead. Utah's done. The Utah offense, they have to just run it 40 to 50 times in this game, ugly it up, try to out physical USC. But I just don't think that they will be able to keep pace. This offense is horrendous. I mean, I don't think people understand how bad it is without Cam Rising, without Kuthi at tight end. They just lost their other tight end for the season in Thomas Yasmin. They don't have any receivers. It's bad. They're only one of 14 teams in the country averaging under 5 yards per play. In comparison, USC is averaging 7.8. They are also giving up a lot of explosive plays, even though they rank outside the top 100 in explosiveness, even though they played all the teams I just mentioned with backup quarterbacks. I think USC is going to hit some explosive plays here. They're going to load the box. They showed they could do that against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, only rushed it 30 times for 125 yards. And they have a much more formidable passing attack than whatever Utah's rolling out there now. So I think this sets up for a really good spot for USC to come out and get a lead. And once they get a lead, if they go up 2 scores, Utah's done. Like they're done. They're going to, once they have to start passing, it's over. So I like USC here. And for what it's worth, following a loss, USC's gone 14-4 against the spread as a single-digit favorite against league opponents since 2005, covering by over 10 points per game. They are the most profitable team in the country in that spot over that period. So I don't like it as much at 7, but still like enough to play smaller. I like the Trojans. For the first time in, I don't know, 2 years, I'm betting USC. Fight on.
Well, I wrote this up for action. Let's see. I bet this on Tuesday morning. I wrote it up for action on Tuesday afternoon. And I said under 56. Had to go back with my editors this afternoon here on Thursday. It's the number's 53. So sometimes you got to go back and review what you put in there. But there is a book out there in Iowa, Pennsylvania, a couple others that is sporting a 54.5, 55 being the biggest key in total. So if you can try to get close to that, I would suggest an under. But look, Caleb Williams.
And we assume Rising and Kuthi are done, right? Like they're just not.
Oh yeah, I mean, Whittingham says it. He says the same thing every day for weeks. We're just waiting on that phone call on Cam Rising, right? And I don't know. I'm not a surgeon. I didn't go to medical school, but like either you know or you don't with your knee. Like, what are they running tests every day on Rising? Like, I mean, how have we been going 7 weeks now and we don't know when he's going to be ready? It's like you're stuck in court or something. Like you're a juror. I don't know why this is taking so long, but yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being way worse than it originally. It wasn't just an ACL. I did the same thing. ACL, MCL, every ligament. That's what he tore. So the timetable is not even there yet. And for what it's worth, going back to Leonard with his injury, sometimes you got to read the tea leaves. And Elko was like, we don't want to risk the long-term health. We don't want to risk the long-term health. Like that's when you're hearing that, a lot of times that's basically saying, hey, we're going to sit him out. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and there's just, I mean, you're right. There's other injuries here. Brant Kuthi, and then Jaquindon Jackson missed a game, and he came back and ran last week, and they asked him, like, what made you run so hard? He's like, I'm pissed off and tired of being injured. I'm tired of all of us being injured. So there's a chip on the shoulder of this Utah offense when it comes to injuries. But let me start. I am going to take Utah at 7.5. If we get a hook out there, I'm going to take it. I wouldn't do it at 6 and 7, like where you're buying USC, but I will take 7.5. So let me just make this case out there. I said this on the new BCS. I'll repeat it. I'm sorry for everyone that watched new BCS. Caleb Williams has not made a big time throw since week 4 against Arizona State. He has a 9-13 big time throw to turnover worthy play rate. That's in contrast to a 32-11 rate last year when he won the Heisman. He only had 6 fumbles last year. He's got 9 this year. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's, the
receivers aren't as good. They lost some pros, and the offensive line is kind of a mess. Like they're still trying to figure that out up front. So I think he's like rushed and trying to do too much.
I think the one thing that puzzles me is that Pac-12 Media Days, cash your tickets. I interviewed Caleb Williams face-to-face, and he said the one thing I learned from last year, especially in the Pac-12 championship game, is that I don't have to leave the pocket all the time, and I don't have to make all these spectacular plays with my legs. So I thought we would come into this season, he'd be more of a pocket passer, working on that, getting ready for the NFL. And lo and behold, every single play is that little spin move that he does outside the tackle box, and he throws off of one leg, side-armed. Like everything is a Patrick Mahomes replica. And you're just not there yet, And so are you distracted? Are you not putting in the work? Are you not studying defensive coverages? Speaking of that in this game, Utah runs an elite coverage unit, cover 3 and cover 1. Caleb has struggled against cover 3 and cover 1. He is really good against quarters. I talked about that last week with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame picked him off a number of times. So I took Utah on the under here. I don't think Caleb's going to get it back just because of the coverage numbers. Utah's defense, we'll see if that translates outside of Rice Eccles. But let me make a case for why I'm going to take Utah at 7.5. Nate Johnson was listed above Bryson Barnes as the quarterback behind Cam Rising. Nate Johnson's going to get the start here, especially when Cam Rising is officially announced not going to play this week. That would lead me to think that Utah is going to go into the Coliseum with a 100% plan to attack on the ground. USC is 83rd in defensive rushing success rate. That is exactly where you want to attack them, is on the ground. Then you go back into USC's schedule. How many times has their defense faced a dual threat quarterback? Siobhan Cordero had 72 rushing yards in the opener. Shadur Sanders had 76 yards in a TD when Colorado played USC. And Arizona backup Noah Fafita scrambled for 30 and had no problems getting down the field in a couple of scrambles. USC's defense has not done well with dual threat quarterbacks. If Nate Johnson is the guy, which he is per the depth chart, that's where Utah is going to attack. And I think that benefits them. I mean, you're bringing defensive backs over, right? Sione Vaki coming in, playing some running back. that's where they're going to attack is on the ground. I will take 7.5 in this game.
Yeah, the one thing I will say though is that USC has struggled to defend in the last 2 years. If you have just a passing offense with a pulse, they can't defend the run.
Yeah,
but if they're able to load the box, I mean, most teams can. If you don't have any threat on the outside, they have enough guys there, and I'm just not sure that Utah has anybody that can threaten USC in the passing game. So they're just going to load the box here, and that's their run defense numbers. You could throw them out if they're able to put 9 guys in the box. So we'll see. Utah definitely has, I think, the coaching edge and the physicality edge, but I think this is a good spot for USC. I think they're going to jump out early, and then it's just going to be tough for Utah. But definitely wouldn't blame you for buying the 7.5. All right, let's move on to our final marquee game of the day, and let's head to the SEC. It's a really lackluster SEC slate. We'll get to your Hogs later, but other than that, I can't play Army. I don't know how they're going to get any stops, and LSU is sure they can stop a team that
does
can
Brian Kelly want to blow out an academy team? I mean, do you really want to blow out Army? Probably not.
Yeah, but I cannot play Army there. Army won't get any stops. And then LSU showed me last week, you have to attack their secondary, and Army can't do that. But Alabama, Tennessee is a good one. They're both have one loss in the season. Massive game for college football playoff hopes, SEC title hopes, everything here. Alabama's an 8.5-point favorite. Under has taken money down to 48.5. When I look at this game, break it down on the surface, Tennessee's rushing attack has been excellent. They basically changed their entire offense. They have a 3-headed monster in the backfield. The passing efficiency is just not there with Joe Milton. Even with teams having to bring more guys in the box, he can't hit anything downfield. Even last week against Texas A&M, questionable secondary, wasn't hitting anything downfield. The accuracy just isn't there. And I don't think you can make a living just running on Alabama. And when you go to the other side of the ball, the Tennessee defense might be legit. They've been really good. They're getting a ton of pressure. They've been great against the run. And their secondary numbers are also pretty good. A lot of that's predicated on pressure. And you can get pressure on Alabama. And Miller's going to take his stacks. Miller's a tough cookie to crack because he's taking a ton of sacks. Alabama's taking too many tackles for loss. And he's not an efficient passer when it comes to the short to intermediate routes. He can't really read defenses that well when he's forced to drop back and go through his progressions. But he has an elite deep ball. I mean, elite. And he's going to hit a couple a game. And that just throws a wrench into everyone's plans. And especially because you don't respect their passing attack overall. And you're going to have these stretches where Milroe looks awful, right? And there's a bunch of 3-and-outs. And you're bringing the guys in the box and you're trying to slow down their rushing attack. And you're paying attention to Milroe as a rushing threat. What does that lead to? A lot of single coverage. And then you're going to hit, all of a sudden there'll be a 70-yard completion that breaks the game open. And he throws a beautiful, accurate deep ball, one of the best in college football, one of the best for any Alabama quarterback over the past 30 years. So how many does he hit this game? I think that's basically what it boils down to. I don't see either team really having success sustaining drives consistently. So I think you'll see a lot of punts. And I think the difference in this game is going to be Alabama hits a couple of those deep shots. And that's the difference at home. And Milton has showed that he can't. So I'm assuming Alabama is going to commit to the run, right? You could get Malachi Moore back here too in the secondary. So they're going to have guys playing man on the outside. And there's going to be opportunities for Milton to potentially hit an explosive play that can break open the game downfield. But what do the numbers say? Milton will not be able to do it, and Milroe will. And I think that's ultimately the difference. I like the under. I'm just afraid of when does the explosion happen? So maybe a first half under is a look. Maybe because I do think Bama's going to go run heavy to start, lean on their D, and then take the shots when they come. What do you see here?
I would be more comfortable with a first half under than a full game, especially being a revenge spot with Saban getting more crusty and pissed as the day goes by. The days go by.
Yeah, that's a good point. Remember, this Alabama's had this game circled.
Yeah, Alabama's probably been waiting on this one. And you know what? I'll echo what's going on with Joe Milton. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been talking about this since March Madness was going on earlier this year. I mean, Joe Milton is not the quarterback for this offense. He has all the arm strength in the world, but his efficiency takes a drop and passes over 20 yards. He's hit 8 of 25, adjusted completion percentage of 36% on passes over 20 yards. That is horrific. It's not SEC level. It's not any level. And I don't know how Joe Milton's going to grade out for the NFL draft or whatever team he's going to end up on. It just feels so Will Levis-ish. It's seems that way. But I mean, the best offense of Tennessee comes from Jalen Wright running the ball. He is a legit load to try to tackle. 23 missed tackles, 13 explosive runs. This is the new identity of the wide splits spread offense that Josh Heupel is running, is Jalen Wright running the ball. So, but Tennessee has been terrible in scoring opportunities. They are 84th in finishing drives. Just over half of their 29 red zone attempts on offense have ended in a touchdown. That's not a good TD rate when you're down, 20 yards from the end zone. So I don't know if they're going to if they can contribute into what I think might turn into an over, because Saban is going to want to score some points here at the end. But when I go to the other side of the ball, that Tennessee pass rush got Saban's attention. In his presser this week, he gave a whole hell yeah when he was asked about, do you think it's going to be a problem? The progression of this offense since the week 2 loss to Texas and Jalen Milroe being benched in a typhoon down at South Florida, Tommy Rees has changed this offense a little bit. Jalen Milroe is not a 5-step drop, read your progressions guy. He is a hot read or take off. That is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Milroe needs to be running the Jalen Hurts offense, and Tommy Rees is slowly getting there because this is not Ian Book. So if you get Jalen Hurts into a hot read or takeoff mode, how much is this Tennessee pass rush going to be a factor? Now, I go into some of the numbers that, Jalen Milroe's had to see with pressures. Alabama's 127th in pressures allowed. It's going to happen. This is no mystery. Tennessee is going to be all over this offensive line. They're going to be all over Jalen Milroe. What is Alabama going to do about it? Are they going to move the pocket around? Are they going to pull some linemen? Are they going to keep a guy in the box to add to blocking? Or are they just going to tell Jalen Milroe, snap it and take off? There's a ton of ways to get around this pass rush. Now, remember, I keep going back to what Sark said. You can stop Jalen Milroe if you maintain your pass rush integrity. If Tennessee just lines up and runs 8 yards down the field on their pass rush, Jalen Milroe is going to be gone. So it's a delicate thing trying to give him a pass rush. Milroe has I love this stat. Couldn't even believe I read it this week. Milroe has the 3rd highest pressure to sack ratio in the nation. Not surprised, right? Like the Old Dominion kid. There's another one out there that are above him. But looking at pressure and avoiding sacks.
He's been sacked like 4 or 5 times for a month for like 4 or 5 straight games.
Jalen Milroe has the 2nd highest NFL grade of any quarterback in college football in a pressured pocket. He's that good in a pressured pocket. And I think that's going to be a real problem here. Yeah, you're going to be able to pressure him. Yeah, you're going to get some sacks, but you're also getting the 2nd highest graded quarterback in pressured pockets. So without Tennessee being able to throw for any distance with Milton, his ADOT is now like 10.2. His career average was 16 yards. It's now 10.2. Jalen Wright is your only means of moving this offense for Tennessee. Give me Alabama to cover. Give me an Alabama second half bet. Give me a second half over. I see this going from one possession game into Saban going into revenge mode in the second half. And I got Alabama covering.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a little first half under.
I like that.
Because I think, this is with the spot, Alabama's had this circled. Where you see that the most is usually with the defense, right? The defense comes out with just their hair on fire, right? And you see just them flying around. So I think the Alabama defense is going to be excellent early on, especially. And then I think Alabama, with concerns about that pass rush, I think they're going to lean very heavily on the ground early on in the game. And what does that mean? That means there's going to be a speeding clock. So I don't think Tennessee's offense is going to do much in the first half. I don't think Alabama's going to have long methodical drives. There are going to be some 3 and outs. And then that's going to set up eventually some shot plays. And then that's where the explosives can come in, whether it's, in the second quarter, in the third quarter, late. And then once that happens and Alabama extends, then Joe Milton, Tennessee's got to play even faster. Joe Milton's got to start throwing it. You could get some turnovers. I'm going to go with the first half under.
Are we going to
blow up?
Are we going to buy an Alabama national championship future if he starts to look like Jalen Hurts more and more and more? Mind this week. I mean, the path is there. I mean, this LSU defense is horrid, right? Everybody's got a differing opinion about what Brock Bowers means to Georgia. Should we tell the listeners, is now the time, if you wanted to buy an Alabama future, because things were bleak after South Florida, is this last call for a good number?
Yeah, I want to dig into. You might have a better odds of the money line rollover, which we'll look at that next week, because you'd have to win you'd have to win the SEC championship game, 2 playoff games, LSU. So right there, you're close to 12-1 or something, which might be a better path. I mean, I do still have some concerns about the LSU game, because how you attack LSU is through the air, and Milroe can hit the explosives, but he can't consistently drop back and just pick apart a defense.
Yeah.
So and LSU's offense is excellent. So I don't know if the Alabama offense is just going to be able to score at will by passing, you saw Ole Miss and any other competent passing attack. So it might be, in a weird way, a decent matchup for the LSU defense. But yeah, we'll explore that more early next week and on our recap episode. Don't forget about the voicemail 959 Bad Beat. We'll do our recap episode Sunday morning with a quick week 9 look ahead. Also, don't forget to check out the Group of 5 guys. Mike and Mike do an excellent job breaking down Group of 5. Mike Calabrese and Mike Iannella every Wednesday morning here on BBOC. They nailed, and you as well, New Mexico State and Diego football on Wednesday night. And they also love Georgia State this week.
And welcome back, Mr. Calabrese. Good to have you back.
Welcome back, football as well. All right, before we move on to rapid fire, I do want to just ask you, you know what everyone loves? Compliments. And compliments are guaranteed after making the leap to skincare with Caldera Lab. Improve the way you look today and 20 years from now with just a couple minutes every day. Upgrade your skincare with Caldera Lab, a simple addition to your morning and nightly routine. Join the other 100,000 men who trust Caldera Lab's 3 easy steps. 1, the clean slate, face wash to start and end your day. 2, the base layer, a daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin. And 3, the good, the eye serum you put on at night, which I love. And just for our audience, we have an exclusive deal. Use code BBOC at calderalab.com and get 20% off right now. That's 20% off with code BBOC at calderalab.com. That's CALDERALAB.com. Make unforgettable first impressions with Caldera Lab. All right, let's get to our rapid fire. Let's cover 4 games here. Clemson, Miami, another game in the state of Florida. Another ACC game in the state of Florida with quarterback uncertainty. The big question here is, how healthy is Tyler Van Dyke? Mario Cristobal seems to insist that he's fine, he's going to play, but there's definitely, if he does play, and we assume he does, how effective is he going to be? This Clemson offense has been really disappointing. Haven't really seen any improvement under Garrett Riley. I wanted to see more explosiveness, and go look at that Wake Forest game. Just ugly. I just don't see it. So I don't know if they can take advantage of some of the coverage issues Miami has on the outside at times, especially when they have played better competition. This game's tough to crack. I would lean under here, especially assuming that Van Dyke won't be at 100%. Clemson 3-point favorite, over under is down to, I think, 48.5. I wouldn't go below 48, but lean to the under here. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm supposed to bet on Clemson, but I think my wallet keeps getting in the way every time I try. How healthy is Tyler Van Dyke? I don't think he's that healthy. I mean, he's had 3 of his 5 turnover-worthy plays have come in the last 2 weeks. against Georgia Tech and North Carolina. How healthy is that finger that he has? He had a fumble last week against North Carolina. So, Miami has a legitimate passing attack. They had a span of 10 TDs, no INTs, over 800 yards in a 3-game stretch against Texas A&M, Bethune-Cookman, and Temple. And of course, those last 2 teams are horrible, but Miami did have a great passing attack. And Clemson's been fantastic in success rate and limiting explosives against opponents' passing attempts. So I have to ask, is the book out on this Miami offense? Because it's declining. Is it health? Is it scheme? Whatever it is, I took a big loss. I loved Miami last week in that game. They were fine until the second half, and North Carolina just dominated them. Whatever halftime adjustments were made by Gene Chizik, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, whatever halftime adjustments were made by Gene Chizik of North Carolina, it worked in shutting down Miami and limiting Tyler Van Dyke. I didn't think I'd ever say that line. So I'm a little bit nervous about the fact that North Carolina was able to completely turn that game around, cause turnovers, and dominate the Hurricanes in the second half, because now that's all on film for the whole Clemson staff to digest. The Miami defense is causing a ton of havoc here, but can Cade Klubnik continue a streak of no interception that dates back to week 2 against Charleston Southern? He's still committing turnover-worthy plays every week. He's got a 6-10 ratio.
He's not been great.
Yeah, it's not been good, but the offense has no explosives in the ground or the air. They're 128th in passing EPA. Gross. But the place to attack Miami is in the air. That's why I can't get a bet out on me on Clemson, because you're, passing attack.
So you want to attack those Miami corners.
Yeah. And
I don't know if Clemson's capable.
Right. And the offensive line is 110th in pressures allowed. They're not protecting Klubnik either. Now, I think the one thing that I'm really interested in is the narrative around is Klubnik a bad passer? Believe it or not, Clemson is 8th in on-target rank. I brought on-target up. Do you hit your wide receiver in stride so that he doesn't have to move? Clemson's actually 8th. The
receivers just aren't that good.
The receivers are bad. They had 3 drops last week against Wake. Tyler Brown, the slot wide receiver, he's been the most explosive. I think he's the only one that's over 2 yards per route run. So it's all on the receivers. Klubnik's actually throwing a very accurate ball, which makes you want to take Clemson, but at the same time, they can't protect him, and he doesn't have any receivers. I like Clemson in this game. I just don't know if I can get myself into playing it.
Yeah, I think the under is appealing here, because I don't think Clemson can take advantage of Miami's corners, and I don't think Van Dyke will be 100%. And this Clemson defense is way ahead of the offense, and I think Miami might go a little run heavier if if Van Dyke isn't 100%. I think Clemson will lean on its ground game, so I think you'll have a little speedy clock here. I hope Miami pulls it out, though, so we can get more Dabo clips, and they drop to 4-3. I also am concerned a little bit about where's Miami mentally, right? We worried about them after the Georgia Tech game. Then they lose to North Carolina. This is a team that was thinking about winning the ACC, going to the college football playoff. Now they've dropped 2 straight. Can they get up for Clemson? Even though it's at home, Miami doesn't have a great home field advantage. It's not like there's going to be this massive, awesome crowd that they can get hyped for. And let's check on Saturday. It's going to be 90 degrees and perfectly sunny in Miami. So, even fewer people are going to the game, and they're going to be out and about, out tanning and drinking. So it's not like they can thrive off the crowd. So I'm interested to see where this Miami team is mentally. All right, let's move on to the MAC. Let's talk some MACtion. Cannot wait for weekday MACtion, but we got a big one. Toledo at Miami of Ohio. Toledo's out to a 2.5-point favorite. Over-unders ticked down a bit to 48.5. I actually make Miami of Ohio a small favorite here. This is a huge game for my futures. I have Miami of Ohio 8-1 to win the MAC. They pretty much just need to win one of the next 2. Because Ohio dropped one in their division. If they lose this week and they win at Ohio, they should be in good shape to get to the MAC championship. So I lean Miami of Ohio in the number, but I don't like the matchup. This year, you were able to run on Toledo, and their run defense has been worse than I thought it was going to be. But Miami of Ohio can't run the ball. So it's just not a great matchup for them, which I think is one of the reasons why Toledo has taken some money here. What are your thoughts on a big one in the MAC?
I try to make every case in the world to get on Miami of Ohio. I believe our G5 guys are on Miami of Ohio, and you got your future, but I had a hard time making a case for them. Toledo, first off, Toledo hasn't played a soul. They're 129th in strength of schedule. Illinois, Texas State, San Jose, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois, UMass, Ball State. Have they played anyone with a pulse since the beginning of September?
No, I mean, look, they and what's really concerning though is that because there's something that's just off with Toledo.
Yeah.
Like they had to come back to beat San Jose State, a bad San Jose State team at home, 21-17. They beat Northern Illinois by 2 at home. And I know it's an improving Northern Illinois team. And then last week they beat Ball State 13-6.
They're horrible.
So like, there's something off with Toledo. I can't put my finger on it because like their metrics outside of their run defense, which has struggled a bit more than I thought, like their metrics are fine, but like there's just something off with them. And then Miami of Ohio every week gets bet against. They get bet against and then they cover. I mean, against. So like they're actually going out and getting results. They won at Cincy. They played Miami. They've had a slightly tougher schedule if you compare them. I mean, they've also played Delaware State, but look, they beat Kent State by 20. They both played UMass, took care of business at UMass. They beat Bowling Green 27-0. They went to Western Michigan, won by 2 touchdowns. But the market hates them, and they're betting against them again. But Toledo keeps not covering. Miami of Ohio keeps covering. It's very bizarre.
So let me run through this, and you just shoot holes through it and make, because I haven't placed any money down yet, but I do want to put money on Toledo. So maybe you can change my mind. The place to attack Miami is on the ground because they're bottom 15 in line yards and stuff, right? And Penny Boone averages 4.2 yards after contact. He's created 30 missed tackles. And then when you go a little bit deeper into the Red Hawks numbers, they're 106th in broken tackles allowed. I mean, I think Penny Boone is going to have a really big day. There's a big finishing drives advantage for Toledo here against the Red Hawks defense. Now, of course, anytime I throw out some Toledo love here, you could say schedule because it's been pretty bad. But the place for Miami to attack is also on the ground. Toledo's 100th in line yards, 70th in success rate against a very soft schedule. And Rashad Amos, he doesn't really have the numbers of Penny Boone. He's below 3 yards after contact, but he's created 14 missed tackles. He's averaged less than 3 yards a carry the last 2 games against Western Michigan and Bowling Green. So that really makes me nervous that it seems like he is getting worse in efficiency as the games go on. And
Miami's outside the top 100 EPA per rush.
Yeah, that was my next thing. I mean, their EPA is just not there, and the Rockets are going to be able to take advantage of that. So, and then you think, you're going to be able to throw? Well, right now, Toledo is 10th in coverage grading per PFF. So I don't see it in the numbers that Miami is heading, worth a wager here over Toledo. I guess that's why the spread is 2.5, but I don't know. Everything I see is Rockets, but at the same time, the strength of schedule is really sick.
Yeah, from a matchup perspective, this favors Toledo and how these two teams profile. But Miami's playing at home with the better quarterback, and there's something off with Toledo that I can't put my finger on, because even with this bad schedule, they're like barely beating these bad teams. So I don't know. I might throw Miami of Ohio in a round robin. I'm going to be rooting for them for the future. But matchup Toledo, something missing but something's missing with them. Miami of Ohio has the better passing quarterback at home, and the better coach. Like Jason Candle is terrible, and he'll probably find a way to blow this game. So tough handicap.
The other one I'm missing too is that MAC home teams are, unless your name is Akron, MAC home teams are dominating. So I guess I forgot that one too, but that goes against Toledo.
And as always, make sure you keep an eye on the weather this time of year for MAC games. But keep an eye on the Action Network app, as always, where you can follow us to see if we end up with anything there. One final game, Washington State, who's fell off a cliff the past 2 weeks. They've really been humbled after a great start. They were dominated by UCLA, despite that final score. Then last week, they got humiliated at home against Arizona. I think 45-6 was the final score. Oregon looking to bounce back from that tough loss against Washington. They're laying 19.5, taking a lot of money here at home against Washington State. Over the total's ticked up to 62.5. Do you have anything here?
I would love to play Oregon here, but it's just a really bad spot. They're coming off the Washington game. They got Utah up next. I mean, Washington State is quickly on the Southern Miss corpse level right now. I mean, they are going down in flames. Wazoo just got drummed at home to Arizona after losing to UCLA. Arizona nearly doubled the national average of success rate on passing downs against Wazoo. It's been very bad. And you know what? We said this, I don't know, we profiled, I think, Washington State in like the marquee games a couple of weeks ago. And I said, where's Cam Ward's turnovers? Like, I'm used to 40 of them a year. Where have they been? Well, 3 INTs the last 2 games, 8 turnover-worthy plays the last 2 games. That's not going to work against an Oregon team that is top 25 in defensive havoc. Problem is, I make this game lower than the 20 that's in the market. Like, Washington State is like, it looks like they're done. They're causing a lot of turnovers. I think Dan Lanning's pissed off about everybody questioning his play calling. Like, I could see this game getting out of hand and Oregon just running them up a flagpole. But the number is beyond what I have, and it's a really bad spot.
Yeah. I would agree. The UCLA put the book out on how to slow this Washington State offense down. All right. Before we move on to some trash, your Hogs, got to get your thoughts on them. They are 6.5-point favorites over under 48.5. The thing here is that Arkansas cannot run the ball at all. They're averaging under 3 yards per carry. They are 112th in rush success rate, 101st. They're outside the top 100 in EPA per rush and rush success rate. They can't run the ball at all. And Rocket Sanders' health is in question. The good news is Mississippi State's been decent against the run, but they can't defend the pass at all. Their secondary is horrid. They are, I have them bottom 5 nationally in defensive pass success rates. The question is, does Arkansas bounce back? First of all, the spot, like, just, does Arkansas, what do they have left in the tank? Because it's the spot we talked about earlier this season. Like, Arkansas is one of the toughest stretches of schedules in the entire league. And they've gone, let's see, they lost to BYU at home, a hard-fought game. Next week, go to LSU, lose by 3. Next week, they're on a neutral against Texas A&M. Next week, you're at Ole Miss, lose by 7. The next week, you're at Alabama, lose by 3. Now, these are all brutal games, back-to-back weeks, and close games for the most part till the end. So ahead of their bye week, which they need desperately, what do they have left in the tank? Do they show up here after 5 straight losses? Against a Mississippi State team that's going to be more well-rested. Right? They're coming off their bye, which was much needed. And I think this basically boils down to, can KJ make enough plays against this horrid Mississippi State secondary? What do you see here?
He will. I think he straps the whole team on his back and gets the victory here. Coach Pittman comes out this week and says this is a must-win. And, a lot of the beat reporters around here are saying, why are you putting this pressure on the players? He's like, if we want to go to a bowl, this is a must win. 3-5 going into the bye week, we got to have it. But, I took Arkansas on open, and then the injury report came out and it sunk from 7 down to 5.5. And we'll have to see who's going to play in this game. Rocket Sanders is out again. That's, in my opinion, yeah, we lose the best running back on the team. We can't run the ball, but what does KJ do? He throws on almost every down. He's getting more comfortable with his receivers, Isaiah Satania, Armstrong, a lot of guys out there he's getting comfortable with. So this is going to be an exclusive passing attack out of Arkansas and KJ, which is a good thing against Mississippi State. I was happy with that. But when you look on the defensive side of the ball, Chris Paul, who they call Pooh, he is questionable. He's the best coverage defender. Corner Dwight McGlothern, they call him Nudie. He's limited. Opposite of him is corner Jalen Braxton. He's questionable for this game. There's so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball that if Mississippi State's going to get it together and score some points, it could be this game. Arkansas does allow a healthy amount of explosives. They're actually pretty good down to down in success rate, but they allow too many explosives. And Mississippi State is top 40, both rush and pass EPA. So I think they're going to be able to keep up here, but at the same time, Mississippi State is 131st defensive finishing drives, and they allow a ton of pass explosives. KJ Jefferson is going to have a field day against this defense. They're going to get lots of points up on the board. The question is can they stop explosives from Mississippi State? I say yes. I'm on the Arkansas side. It's a must win. It is, round everybody up and get ready because we have to have this game. I expect them to cover.
All right. Let's move on to some trash. All right, I got 6 pieces of trash here. I'll go through them rapid fire. You tell me if you agree or disagree, and feel free to add anything. Let's start. Michigan State plus 24.5 against Michigan. I make this line closer to 20. Look, Michigan State is bad, but they've played a brutal schedule. They've lost 4 games against teams with a combined 22-5 record. Meanwhile, Michigan's 7-0. They played ECU, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Indiana. Good God. They've played nobody. They benefited from tons of turnovers and 4th down variants, which has led to them winning every game by at least 25 points, but it's still a methodical offense. Michigan State's defense playing better lately. I liked what I saw from Hauser in his first start. He's better than Kim. Big rivalry game. I think Michigan State here will throw everything they have at Michigan. There's only been, in this rivalry, we've only seen, 3 times. The spread has been over 3 touchdowns. Michigan State covered all 3 and won 1 outright. I like Sparty here. I think the perception would be different if they were able to hold on. They could have beat Iowa 2 weeks ago.
And Rutgers.
Special teams bunders. And they could have beat Rutgers if they didn't have 2 special teams bunders. They were outscored 34-0 in the 4th quarter of both those games after holding both those teams at 13-6 through 3 quarters. So defense is playing better. This line is inflated. This is basically Michigan State Super Bowl. This is everything they have. They'll throw at them. I think this line's too high for a methodical Michigan offense. Just got to hope they don't get short fields.
Yeah, this is the Super Bowl for every single coach and player on the Michigan State staff. You got to take Michigan State at 24.5. I'm with you. I make the game 19.5. It's too high.
Let's go Arizona State. Sun Devils, great spot here. They've taken some money. Let me see where it sits now. I played some 28.5, which obviously matters. It's 27.5. I still like it at 27.5. So Washington's off that huge emotional win over Oregon, and Arizona State's coming off of a bye. Just a great situational spot. They needed a bye. They dealt with as many injuries as any team in the country. I think their market rating's still a little bit too deflated because early in the season they were a disaster with all the injuries, and they lost like 38-0 to Fresno and had 8 turnovers. But look, Washington, they were outgained by like 150 yards last week against Oregon. Their defense still has some holes. Their offense still has some issues in the red zone. They might come out a bit flat here. I think Arizona State, a team that can't go to a bowl, you've seen them already in these bigger games against Colorado, USC. Like, these are their Super Bowls. These are their bowl games. So their offense has played better of late. The strength of their team is in the secondary. That's important against Washington. Sun Devils also ranked dead last in turnover margin, bottom 10 in opponent 4th down conversion rate, and been the unluckiest teams in terms of field position. There's some positive variance coming for them. So I like Arizona State. Washington might be sleepy. Pennick's a little banged up, so you might pull him a little earlier. Might not use him as much. Let's just get the win here. Who cares about the margin? For what it's worth, since 2005, Arizona State 28-2 against the spread, 71.5% as a double-digit underdog, covering by over a touchdown per game. The most profitable team in the country as a double-digit dog over the past 20 seasons. That includes 2-0 this year against USC and Cal. I like the Sun Devils. Forks up.
Yeah, you're on your own on this one. If you were going to give me a spot where Washington has too many points in the market, which I don't think they do, I think number should be 29. I do understand it's a bad spot for Washington, but give me a team, give me an opponent that has a pulse on the ground that can run the ball and take the ball out of Michael Penix's hands. That is not Arizona State. Arizona State does not have the explosives in the run game. They have a little bit better explosives in the pass game, but the Huskies' defense strength is in the secondary. So I will let you go this one on by yourself.
Let's go Indiana against Rutgers. There's too many points. Look, Rutgers has gotten off to a good start, but now you're asking to win basically by a touchdown on the road. Look, their strength of schedule has been below national average. Meanwhile, Indiana played one of the toughest schedules in the country. They played Michigan, Louisville, Ohio State, and Maryland already. I mean, that is as brutal as it gets. So, and again, this Rutgers team needed a miracle to beat Michigan State. They've played Wagner, Temple, Virginia Tech, Northwestern, and Michigan State. Like, come on. Those are their wins. So this offense is still bad. I mean, it's a horrendous offense. This totals down to 39. You got to take the points here. The first time Rutgers is a road favorite of more than a field goal since joining the Big Ten. Indiana showed some things last week. They're the fresher team here. I'll take Indiana here. Line's too high.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree. I will say the market agrees with you. It's coming down off of the opener. So I would probably get it before it goes down any further. I am questionable on whether I'm going to be on this with you.
This is a schedule play. This is your schedule play.
I know.
Brutal schedule. Also brutal fumble luck.
The problem is, I talked to you about this off camera, right? The problem is when I take these dogs on the 11 a.m. Central, the Jefferson Pilot time slot, they don't pull off as many upsets as they do at 4, 5, 9 p.m. These damn 11 a.m. dogs are killing us sometimes.
Well, then you are not going to like my next two plays, which are both at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. your time. UCF plus 18.5 against Oklahoma. This line's way too high. I mean, look, we're talking about a UCF team, which now should be close to 100% coming off a bye. Plumlee, I'm hearing, is 95 to 100%. His legs are paramount to this offense. But we're talking about a team that was a 6-point dog at Kansas State without Plumlee a couple weeks ago. Oh, Oklahoma is not 2 touchdowns better than Kansas State. I'm sorry. And I know Oklahoma has covered every game. They've won every game. They could have easily lost to Texas without some time management botching and 3-0 turnover advantage in a goal line stand. They also struggled with Cincy, who's been horrendous ever since. They were up by 3 against SMU in the fourth quarter with 10 to go. They've benefited from some great turnover luck. I think a running quarterback can give this Oklahoma defense some trouble. Oklahoma's also going to be without their leading receiver for the rest of the season, and Anthony. They don't have a lot of depth at that position. So this line's way too high. For what it's worth, Malzahn 12-4 against the spread with 10 or more days to prepare for an opponent in his career, covering by 10 points per game. Give me the Knights.
Can we get Venables to pull a Stoops where he's like at 11 a.m. we'll all be drunk and in the stadium ready to go because Venables has been complaining about poor crowds and early kicks. I'm with you. I got money down earlier this week when we knew that John Reese Plumlee was going to be back. I make the number 15 with Plumlee in the lineup. So in the time you and I have been podcasting over an hour, we've seen this thing go from 18.5 down to a 17, a flat 17. So you should still be buying UCF at 17. I buy it for less at 16.5, but definitely numbers too high.
And another noon dog for you. We're going Navy. Navy plus anything over 10 is fine here in the first leg of the Commander-in-Chief's, in the battle for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy this season. And guess what? It's the first game between service academies under the new clock rules. Dogs are going to be appetizing. I'm telling you, dogs are already appetizing, double-digit dogs. These two teams are the slowest in the country, and they have the highest rush rates in the country. Air Force will be without their starting quarterback, and they've been the most explosive passing offense in the country. Now you're going to Jensen Jones. All it is going to be triple option. They're going to run. He doesn't throw. I mean, maybe he'll take a couple shots. Navy has quarterback injury questions as well, but I actually like the drop-off isn't as big, and I actually like what I saw from the freshman Braxton Woodson last week. Lavatai still might go. We'll see. You have Xavier Arline as well. But there's a ton of familiarity here. There could be like 6 possessions total in this game. You could have a quarter go by with one team having the whole ball. I mean, I'm taking the double. I mean, Air Force has been great. They're 6-0 for the first time since 2002, I believe. They're ranked, playing their first game as a ranked team since 2010. But sellout crowd in Annapolis, early kick for Air Force going across country. Navy knows how to defend the triple option. That's what they're going to get here. And like against another team that can't throw the ball in Charlotte, Navy just pitched a shutout. They also did that against Wagner, another pass-averse team. They can defend teams that can only run it. They know it. There's so much familiarity here. Just headbutting. I mean, last year Air Force 2 touchdown favorite At home, they only won by 3. Navy wants this game. They've lost 3 straight in the series. Service Academy's 87, 70, and 5 against the spread when catching more than a touchdown since 2005. This total is given down to 36.5. You got to take the double digits with Navy.
Did Air Force cover against Sam Houston?
They did not.
Nope. They didn't cover a double-digit spread, right?
No. And look, and they didn't cover against Wyoming. Air Force has started out 6-0. They faced one of the easiest schedules in the country. I have it like 160.
Yeah.
They beat Rob Morris, Sam Houston, Utah State, San Jose State, San Diego State. All these teams are really bad at defending the run too. And Wyoming. Wyoming's got their leading rusher, and that game was tied with 2 to go. They've been double-digit favorites in 5 of those games. They played 5 of them at home. I mean, this schedule's been a joke. If they win this game, they could go undefeated for what it's worth. They have an easy schedule, but I like Navy here.
No, I mean, Air Force, when they've played other teams with a slow pace, for them to cover a double-digit spread is really hard. I think the one thing that I could not get my eyeballs off of, Air Force 131st in strength of schedule. When you have 2 service academies go at each other, I go immediately to the stuff rate. Air Force defensively 105th in defensive stuff rate. That is crazy against the schedule they played. So yeah, Navy.
Yeah. And for what, like, all it needs is just like one fumble pitch after like a 17-minute drive. And
there might be only 6 or 7 possessions in this game.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like they could have a whole quarter possession with these new clock rules. Keep an eye out for Riley Reithman, too, the punter for Navy. He's having a hell of a season. And Navy has an edge there, which could matter in this game. I mean, you punt like 15 extra yards. It's like 4 more minutes off the clock. All right. And then the last one, we're going to go with Minnesota against Iowa. Iowa playing its, what's that?
Can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe we're talking about this game.
I'm selling high on Iowa. This Iowa team's, by the way, it's playing its 8th straight game against the Minnesota. They have no buys, and their defense got to be exhausted. They're on the field the whole game against the Minnesota team coming off of a bye. Should be much fresher, much healthier. Should get their running back, Darius Taylor, back. He's missed the past 2 games, and their best linebacker, Cody Lindenberg. I think he's going to make his season debut. I mean, look, Minnesota has 2 losses against undefeated North Carolina and Michigan, and then they blew a 21-point lead to Northwestern. You can run on this Iowa team. If you look at their underlying metrics, I think that's all Minnesota wants to do is a snail. They're a snail and they want to run. The Greek rifle, he's not really, he's more like a Greek, water pistol. But this Iowa team, they should not be laying points to anybody. This is the worst offense in the country. I mean, they're dead last in success rate. They have a backup quarterback now. They had 2 reliable weapons, Luke Lachey at tight end, and then Eric All. They're both out for the year now. Eric All led the team last week with a whopping 2 catches for 19 yards. Deacon Hill, since taking over as starter, 23 of 62, 37% for 260 yards in 3 games. Iowa was outgained in those 3 games by 52, 95, and 127. This offense is fucking horrendous. It's for Iowa, too. They can't throw it. They have no receivers. Their only 2 weapons at tight end are out for the year. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to run the ball. They're 125th in EPA per rush and 130th in rush success rate. Great. So they're going to have to win games by punting to the 1. Maybe they do it, but this total's 31.5. The lowest total that we've tracked in 20 years. I'm obviously taking the underdog catching over a field goal here.
But are you going to take the over?
No. This game could end 6-3.
Well, I think the thing that kind of shocked me is like, listen, Minnesota's going to try to run the ball, 64% rush rate. Do you know Iowa has a pretty bad rush defense? Like I didn't.
Yeah, well, you obviously didn't listen to my explanation. I said that. I said Darius Taylor's back. Iowa's run defense, if you dig into the metrics, has been bad. So I think Minnesota can sustain drives on the ground. That's all they want to do is snail, run. Iowa can't do anything on offense. So the one advantage in this game is Minnesota running the ball.
Yeah, they're not going to throw it. I'd be surprised if Ethan Kaliak-Manis has like more than 10 passing attempts in this game. Maybe if they're like 3rd and long, I don't know, because like Iowa is the best coverage unit in the nation. They are good at stopping explosive passes, but when it comes to the run, they can't stop that at all. And that to me is a great equalizer in a game where there's not going to be a lot of clock. So yeah, Minnesota to cover.
All right. So to recap, just say yes or no if you agreed again. Michigan State,
Yes.
Arizona State,
No.
Indiana.
Yes.
I convinced you on Indiana. Great. Navy,
Yes.
UCF,
Absolutely. Big.
Minnesota. Yes. I said
Yes.
yes for you. 5 of 6.
How am I in the dumpster with you and Oscar the Grouch?
we're-
Like, how did I get
in the trash can together in the dumpster? Hopefully there's a nice restaurant nearby that dumps off some scraps. All right. Hopefully, well, good luck to us and to all of you who join us in the dumpster. Let's make it a party. All right. Clemson has multiple losses, as we said before. So that means the typical college football season is in full swing. And as gamblers, we're all looking for wholesome, convenient meals during this hectic season. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and avoid hunger-related tilting. With Factor, you skip the extra trip to the grocery store, the shopping, the prepping, and the cleanup too. And Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to adjusting your priors or sweating out some bet from our trash section. So upgrade your meals and your lifestyle and head to factormeals.com/BBOC50 and use code BBOC50 to get 50% off. That's code BBOC50 at factormeals.com/BBOC50 to get 50% off. All right, before we go 3 and out, 10-second handicap, Nevada at San Diego State. You've been hot on these. The San Diego State's been an over team this year. Does it continue?
No, it's going to be an under team because of Nevada. I mean, you're not going to find
That
worse
is dreadful.
statistics for a college football team than Nevada. Anything San Diego State wants to do, they're going to get it. I project the total to be at 39. I expect the San Diego State defense to have success in limiting Nevada's big plays, which there's never any, and in the red zone where Nevada is absolutely terrible. They've only had 15 visits to the red zone. That's 128th in number of trips to the red zone, 2 ahead of Charlotte and Kent State. You got to take an under. Nevada's never scores. They're never even have a chance to score. Sorry, guys. No over this week because of the opponent. We'll go under.
They're so bad. All right, before we get out of here, let's go 3 and out. All right, first down, Friday Night Lights. Yeah, this weekday of football is bad. I can't wait for the match. It's bad. There's one Friday night game, and it's SMU at Temple. You have the Stone Age and Preston Stone, legit AAC contenders taking on Temple. They're up to a 20.5-point favorite. Yeah, they've taken money. Does that mean EJ Warner is out?
I think Quincy Patterson's been around long enough to play in the Stone Age, right?
Yeah, I have no interest in this game. I have SMU futures, so I just hope they don't lose. This game is awful. Anything here for you?
The number is way too high, but at the same time, how does Temple get anything going here? I mean, with Warner, it should be an 18-point spread. Without, I'd say about 21.5. Quincy,
He's out, by the way. And then
okay,
Sean Drayton announced.
I mean, how does Temple get any money, get anything on the board? I mean, they're so reliant on the pass. 60% of the time they throw the ball, but that's because they spend a hell of a lot of time in passing downs. That's not going to change against SMU, and SMU is the #1 defense in the country in defending explosives in standard downs, which tells me Temple's going to be behind the chains all night. The SMU offense is going to have its way. No havoc, no resistance, no scoring opportunities. If you're going to bet SMU, you're betting an inflated number. I'm not going to be on it, but good luck if you do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could see SMU's offense hasn't been that explosive. Their defense has been surprising. So I could see them just being sleepy in this game too, like at Temple without their starting quarterback.
They got Tulsa the next week, so there's not like a huge look ahead. I mean, Tulsa's 1-1.
Yeah,
so
that's true. SMU is a very formidable schedule. Then it's Rice, North Texas, Memphis, and Navy. So the Stone Age could be in the AAC ship, which I hope is for my futures. All right, let's move on. Second down, favorite, overdog, favorite. I'm going with USC. I mentioned this earlier. I think it's a good spot for them to bounce back against a Utah defense that won't have their star safety in the first half and hasn't played an offense with a pulse yet. They played nothing but backup quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks, bad offenses. And the 2 games that they've gone away from Rice Eccles, where they have all the voodoo, They should have lost to a bad Baylor team with their backup, and they got dominated by Oregon State. I just think USC can load the box here, and Utah won't be able to keep up. Give me the Trojans. Fight on. Where are you going?
I'm going Kansas State. And if you didn't get the chance to see Avery Johnson running the ball, he had 5 TDs last week. Now he's in an or situation with Will Howard, where either of them are going to play quarterback. But it really just screams what they did with Adrian Martinez and Will Howard last year. You suspect that Avery Johnson is going to get a lot of the run carries. Will Howard will do the throwing. But you know what? Avery Johnson can throw too. We just haven't seen it yet. This TCU defense is a 3-3-5 stack. They're very light in the box. And what we knew from last year is Joseph Gillespie does not like to add to the box, even if he's going up against a heavy rush attack. It really shows in the numbers. TCU is 68th in defensive line yards. They're outside of the top 50 and allowing explosive rushing, which is going to happen in this game. I think Kansas State is renewed. They're pissed off. And this Avery Johnson kid running the ball is a sight to see. Get your TVs turned on for 6 p.m. on Saturday night, because Avery Johnson's going to give it to you. Take Kansas State -6.5. I power rated 9. So, and that's not even adjusting for Avery Johnson.
Emal. Fight on and Emal. All right. One final test. Third down. Our underdog moneyline parlay. Our favorite moneyline underdogs. Easy choice for me. I just talked about it. Minnesota. You're telling me the worst offense in the country is a favorite with a total of 31.5. Playing its 8th straight game with an exhausted defense against a Minnesota team coming off of a bye, getting its running back back, most likely getting its best linebacker back. They can run the ball on this Iowa team. That's what they want to do. This game should be ugly, high variance. Like, it'll just come down to basically like one turnover. Hopefully it's not the Greek rifle. Give me the Gophers. Where you go?
I'm going to a team that we've been touting since the middle of the year, middle of the summer, and that is Colorado State. We said if this team can survive having injuries on the offensive line, they're going to be a play-on team in Mountain West Conference play. Here we are. They needed a billion things to happen to get that win against Boise State. I think that carries over into this game against UNLV. UNLV has been atrocious in defending the big play. They're 130th in the nation. When you look at their pass coverage rank, 109th by PFF, and they're 115th in passing success rate. That is not going to work against Braden Fowler, Nicolosi. And, you know, if you look at the EPAs just up against each other, which is what Colorado State mostly is with Torrey Horton there,
Colorado State only passes. That's all they do.
That's all they do. And that's really bad for UNLV, who is terrible in defending explosives and the pass. So give me Colorado State to pull off another one.
Let's do it. All right. That'll do it for us and our 300th episode. Thanks again to all of you. Thanks, of course, to Colin for joining me for all of those episodes. Thanks to our other fellow co-hosts, Mike, Brett, and our producers on the back end. It's been a hell of a ride, but we're just getting started. Here's the 300 more and then 300 more after that. Make sure you subscribe, subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. You know the deal. Leave a review, a 5-star review. Do some giveaways in the next week. You can say whatever if you already done it. Borrow someone's phone, do another one. They really help us out. Appreciate all of your support. Make sure you check us out 10:30 a.m. Eastern live, BBOC live on Twitter, YouTube, the app. We'll tweet out the link. Myself, Colin, and Brett McMurphy will cover Saturday's slate. We'll have our recap episode. Don't forget about the voicemail, 959-BAD-BEAT. Thanks to our sponsor, BetMGM. Tuesday, new BCS, 10:30 a.m. Eastern live on YouTube. Then Group of 5 guys. Remember to check them out. Always Wednesday morning. And then Colin and I will be back. Week 9 betting preview comes out late Thursday night, as always. Good luck with all of your wagers, and we will see you on Saturday. Cheers.
Peace out.